Before we begin, I want to ask you for something small but important. Please don't listen to this story with judgment. Listen with heart, because this isn't just a story about fame, money, or hit songs. This is a story about a woman who kept smiling while the world quietly took pieces of her away. And if you've ever felt ignored, underestimated, or made to feel small by someone who once lifted you up, then this story is for you. She stood on the biggest stages in the world. She sold millions of albums. She won Grammys. Yet one day, she looked around and realized she had nothing. No money. No control. No voice. And the worst part, the people who did this to her were the very ones who claimed they loved her. This is the real story of Toni Braxton and the betrayals that shaped her silence. Toni Braxton has always been known for her grace. She doesn't yell. She doesn't rant. She doesn't drag people online. When chaos happens, Toni stays quiet. For years, people thought that silence meant weakness. They thought she was just too classy to fight back. But what if that silence wasn't elegance? What if it was survival? Because behind that calm voice was a woman carrying betrayals so heavy. She wasn't even allowed to speak about them for 10 years. Today, we're counting down 6 people and institutions that Toni Braxton has openly or quietly despised, not out of hate, but out of deep emotional damage. And by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand why Toni's grace wasn't a personality trait. It was armor. Every fairy tale has a beginning. And for Toni Braxton, that beginning was Babyface. He discovered her. He produced her biggest hits. He helped turn a church singer from Maryland into a global superstar. Without Babyface, there may never have been a Toni Braxton. And that's exactly where the problem began. Years later, in 2013, Toni reunited with Babyface to record an album called Love, Marriage, and Divorce. This time, Toni wasn't a young girl anymore. She was a mother, a divorcee, a woman who had lived real pain. She thought this album would be different. She believed they would finally work as equals. She was wrong. Toni was going through a real divorce while recording the album. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't acting. She was bleeding through her lyrics. One song in particular, called I Wish, was raw and angry. She cursed at her ex. She wished him misery. She said the things people are usually too afraid to admit. And that honesty made the song powerful. But Babyface didn't like it. He wanted the pain prettier, smoother, less uncomfortable. So he started changing her words, overriding her ideas, correcting her emotions, softening her truth. Imagine this. You've sold millions of records. You've won Grammys. You've been doing this for over 20 years. And the man who once discovered you now talks to you like you're still a beginner. Every time Toni pushed back, every time she said, "No, this is how I feel," she was shut down. Not because she was wrong, but because his past mattered more than her present. Toni later admitted she felt handled during those sessions, like she was being molded instead of listened to, like her emotions were something to manage instead of something to honor. The album won a Grammy, but behind that trophy was months of emotional exhaustion. Babyface didn't steal her voice, but he reminded her how easily it could be ignored. And the next betrayal, that one involved something much worse. In 1994, Toni Braxton recorded a song so emotional. The producer cried. Not figuratively. Actually cried. The song was called Before You Walk Out of My Life. Toni sang it like her heart was breaking. The producer called her an angel, said it was the best vocal he'd ever recorded. Toni knew. This was her song. No release date. No explanation. Nothing. The song just vanished. Months later, Toni was flipping through TV channels. And suddenly, she heard it. The same melody. The same lyrics. But it wasn't her voice. It was a 14-year-old girl named Monica. The industry move. Behind the scenes, chaos exploded. Toni's label was furious. L.A. Reid demanded answers. What happened? The truth was simple and cruel. Clive Davis, president of Arista Records, heard the song. He wanted it. And when Clive Davis wants something, he usually gets it. He took the song and gave it to Monica. Monica's album shot to #1. Awards came pouring in. Meanwhile, Toni had to watch another artist succeed with a song that was recorded for her, styled for her, meant for her career. Toni never publicly attacked Monica, but that song created a shadow that followed them both. And the industry loved reminding everyone of it. But if that betrayal hurt, the next one nearly ended Toni's comeback forever. By now, one thing is clear. Toni Braxton wasn't losing battles because she lacked talent. She was losing battles because power always wins over honesty in the music industry. And we're only getting started. If you believe artists deserve respect, not silence. If you believe truth matters more than charts. Backhand index pointing right like this video. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe for part 2. Backhand index pointing right and comment. Toni deserved better. Because her story isn't just about music. It's about survival. So far, we've seen how Toni Braxton was shaped, then slowly silenced. First, by a mentor who stopped listening. Then, by an industry that handed her song to someone else. But nothing prepared her for what happened next. Because this time, the betrayal didn't just hurt her feelings. It killed her comeback. By the early 2000s, Toni Braxton was exhausted. She had survived bad contracts, public humiliation, health problems, and bankruptcy. But she wasn't done. She believed she still had one more moment left. One more chance to remind the world who she was. In 2002, Toni was working on her album More Than a Woman. She was hungry, focused, careful, and then she found the song. It was called Me and My Boyfriend. The song sampled Tupac's Me and My Girlfriend. It was bold, clever, different. Toni knew it could be huge. One small mistake. Feeling excited, Toni played the track for someone connected to Def Jam Records. Just a preview. Just a moment of pride. She trusted the room. That trust cost her everything. Weeks later, Toni heard something familiar on the radio. Same Tupac sample. Same concept. Same energy. But it wasn't her. It was Beyoncé and Jay-Z. The song was called 3 Bonnie and Clyde. And it dropped before Toni's album. Confusion turned to realization. Toni's team was stunned. How could this happen? Clearing a Tupac sample usually takes weeks or months. But somehow, Beyoncé's version was approved almost overnight. And suddenly, Toni wasn't seen as the originator anymore. She was painted as the copycat, watching your moment die. Beyoncé and Jay-Z's song shot up the charts. Radio loved it. TV loved it. The industry backed it fully. Toni's album. It debuted at number 13. Sold under 500,000 copies. Her comeback collapsed, the pain behind the anger. Toni wasn't just mad about a song. She was heartbroken. This album was supposed to save her career after bankruptcy. Instead, she was forced to defend herself, accused of stealing an idea she created first. Jay-Z called it coincidence. Kanye claimed he never heard Toni's version. But no one explained how their team moved so fast. While Toni waited, Tio and I finally spoke. On Wendy Williams' show, Toni let a little truth slip out. She said she felt like new divas were trying to take her place. She wasn't bitter. She was grieving because she didn't lose fairly. She lost to power. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, she walked onto a stage that would humiliate her forever. Number 3, OPRAHWNFREY. Public shame in front of the world. In 1998, Toni Braxton hit rock bottom. She was sick with lupus. She was fighting her label. She was broke. And the media was laughing. The interview that was supposed to save her. Toni's publicist said she needed to speak out. Explain the truth. Clear her name. So they booked the Oprah Winfrey Show, the biggest platform in America. Toni trusted Oprah. She admired her, looked up to her. She believed Oprah would protect her. The ambush. From the moment the interview started, something felt wrong. Oprah didn't ask about unfair contracts. She didn't ask about royalty theft. She didn't ask about industry manipulation. Instead, she focused on one thing: Toni's spending. The question that broke her. Oprah looked at Toni and asked, "How much responsibility do you take for where you are right now?" Toni answered honestly, 100%. But Oprah didn't stop. She kept pressing, reframing Toni's story as a warning, not a tragedy. The damn it. Think about what happened in that moment. A sick woman. A broke woman. A woman fighting for survival. And the most powerful woman in media turned her into a lesson. Not a victim of a broken system, but a careless spender who deserved what she got. The aftermath. That interview followed Toni for decades. Every article, every joke, every criticism. Years later, in 2012, Toni finally spoke about it. Her voice cracked. She said she felt reprimanded, humiliated, betrayed. No apology, no acknowledgement. Oprah never responded, never explained, never apologized. And Toni, she never forgot. Because public shame cuts deeper than private betrayal. But the deepest wound of all came from someone who shared her last name. By now, the pattern is undeniable. Whenever Toni needed protection, she was exposed. Whenever she needed fairness, she faced power. And the people who hurt her most weren't enemies. They were insiders. Some betrayals hurt because they come from strangers. But the ones that break you come from family. Because family is supposed to protect you when the world turns cold. For Toni Braxton, the deepest wound didn't come from the industry. It came from her own sister, and they believed they were a package deal. In 1991, the sisters performed at a showcase for LaFace Records in Los Angeles. They sang their hearts out. Executives listened carefully. Then, when the performance ended, they made a decision that would fracture this family forever. They didn't want the group. They wanted one sister, the choice. They pulled Toni aside. Not Tamar. Not Towanda. Not Trina. Toni. Tamar was only 13 years old. She watched her big sister get chosen, while she got sent back to school. That moment planted a seed. And seeds don't stay small forever. Tamar didn't just feel rejected. She felt erased. For years, she stood behind Toni as a background singer, watching her sister win awards, sell millions, live the dream they were supposed to share. And every clap from the crowd reminded Tamar of what she didn't have. Tio and I tried to fix it. Toni knew it wasn't fair. She pushed for her sisters to get a deal. In 1993, they signed as a group. But things fell apart. Label drama, delays, pregnancies, bad timing. When their album finally dropped in 1996, it flopped, 83,000 copies. Meanwhile, Toni was going multi-platinum. YTAMAR couldn't let it go. The other sisters eventually made peace with it. But Tamar didn't. Because her wound came from childhood. She didn't want just success. She wanted justice. When TMAR finally won. In 2013, Tamer's moment finally came. A solo album. A hit single. Reality TV fame. For the first time, she was Toni's little sister. She was Toni Braxton. But success didn't heal her. It changed her. Success turned into separation. Suddenly, the family dynamic shifted. Now Toni was the star, and the others felt the same jealousy she once carried. Towanda complained about favoritism. Trina felt overshadowed again. And Toni felt like Toni wasn't supporting her anymore. She felt like Toni was competing with her. The explosion, 2018. In 2018, everything collapsed. Toni backed out of Toni's tour, blocked her on social media, cut off contact completely. They brought in Iyanla Vanzant to mediate. And during that session, Toni said the words that broke everything. She said Toni had surpassed her. Words that never heal. To Toni, it was honesty. To Toni, it was proof. Proof that she'd been chasing validation her entire life. From the very sister who replaced her. Tragedy arrives too late. In 2022, Toni Braxton passed away. Death changes everything. Suddenly, the fights felt pointless. The blocking. The competition. The years of resentment. Gone. And now unfixable. The cycle continues. By 2025, another rift opened. Toni accused her sisters of sending a cease and desist. Toni denied it. But the damage was already done. The new season of The Braxton Show shows them crying, screaming, trying to fix something broken since 1991. The real truth. This isn't about fame. This is about a 13-year-old girl who was told she wasn't enough. And a woman who spent her whole life trying to prove she was. Toni didn't destroy the family because she was evil. She destroyed it because she was wounded. And Toni didn't stay silent because she was weak. She stayed silent because speaking would mean losing everyone, the one that explains everything. The institution that robbed Toni Braxton in plain sight and forced her into silence for 10 years. If this chapter hurt to hear, if it reminded you of your own family wounds, backhand index pointing right like this video. Backhand index pointing right subscribe for part 4. Backhand index pointing right comment. Healing should have come sooner. Because some damage. Lives for generations. By now, you may be asking yourself one question. How does someone sell millions of albums, win Grammys, fill arenas, and still end up broke? The answer isn't poor choices. It's something far more dangerous. Number 1, LAFACE Records. When success becomes a trap. Before any of the betrayals we've discussed. Before the stolen songs. Before the public humiliation. Before the family fractures. There was LaFace Records, the institution that made Toni Braxton a star, and quietly took everything from her. The deal that looked like a dream, 1989. In 1989, Toni Braxton signed with LaFace Records. The label was brand new, founded by L.A. Reid and Babyface. Toni was young, inexperienced, grateful. She trusted them. That trust cost her everything. The contract SHE didn't understand. Her contract said she'd earn around 35 cents per album sold. To a young artist, that sounded fair. But here's what it didn't explain clearly. The label took everything else. The trap called recoupment. Studio time. Charged to Toni. Music videos. Charged to Toni. Tour buses, dancers, stylists, promotion. Charged to Toni. Every dollar spent to make her famous was billed to her. So before she earned a cent, she had to pay the label back. The illusion of success. In 1996, Toni released Secrets. It sold over 15 million copies worldwide. She was everywhere. Award shows, magazines, television. She waited for the check that would change her life. When it finally came, it was less than $2,000. You still owe US. Confused, Toni asked for answers. The label explained. After deducting expenses, she still owed them money, even after generating $170 million in sales. Let that sink in. The lawsuit and the collapse. By 1997, Toni had had enough. She sued LaFace to escape her contract. The label fought back aggressively. The pressure became unbearable. In 1998, Toni Braxton filed for bankruptcy. She owed over $3 million. And the media destroyed her. The wrong question. The world mocked her, called her reckless, called her irresponsible. But no one asked the right question. How does someone make $170 million for a label and end up with nothing? The settlement that silenced her. In 1999, Toni finally settled with LaFace. But there was a condition. A cruel one. She was forced to sign a gag order. For 10 years, she was legally forbidden from telling the truth. The silence people misunderstood. People thought Toni was quiet because she was classy, because she was shy, because she had moved on. The truth. She wasn't allowed to speak. Her silence wasn't grace. It was court-ordered survival. The truth finally comes out, 2009. When the gag order expired, Toni finally told her story. She revealed how the label profited while she suffered. Even Babyface admitted in court that her deal was unfair. Suddenly, the jokes stopped. The apologies started. The reputation that never fully healed. By then, the damage was done. Years of shame. Years of whispers. Years of blame. You can't get that time back. The final realization. That calm voice you hear. It wasn't natural. It was built. Out of loss. Out of betrayal. Out of being robbed in plain sight. Toni Braxton didn't survive the industry because it was kind. She survived despite it. Final outro, the truth that changes everything. So when you see Toni Braxton today, soft-spoken, careful with her words, measured in her emotions, remember this. She learned that speaking the truth can cost you everything. And silence. Sometimes it's the only way to stay alive. If this story changed how you see Toni Braxton, if it opened your eyes to how the music industry really works, backhand index pointing right like this video. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe for more untold stories. Backhand index pointing right, comment. Toni Braxton deserved justice. Because this wasn't just her story. It's the story of countless artists who were never allowed to speak.